Fabulous. All right. So I'm going to start with the forms and then we're going to go back to that buyer checklist because we're going to try to finish up buyer transaction contract to close tonight or today, this afternoon. I don't even know what time it is. It's morning. It's 9 a.m. It feels like evening. Anyways, so we're going to hop in first with the forms. So today we were going to cover the HID and the BIW. The HID is the for your protection, get a home inspection. And I'm going to show you why we're going to cover that here in a second, if I can figure out how to share my screen. There we go. All right. Let's see. Look, you guys are on the right window this time. Yay. All right. So here we go. So this is, let me open that up. There we go. All right. So I have on my screen pulled up the residential purchase agreement. And I want to bring your attention to this because this is a really important fact. Here on your residential purchase agreement in your grid form on E1, so 3E1, where it talks about the loan, you're going to put in your loan amount and your interest rate. And then you're going to do, over here, it defaults to conventional. Notice if you're going to do an FHA loan, it says the forms FVAC and the HID are attached. Okay. If you do not attach the HID, which I'm going to say 99.9% of us are not attaching that HID, we are actually out of compliance on our contract. The sellers could actually put a 2-day notice to perform to get that HID from you. And if you don't turn it in because you don't know what it is, then they could cancel the contract on you because it states here contractually it's attached. So please make sure to begin attaching that with your FHA transactions. In addition, yes,
it doesn't automatically.
So I was just going to ask that if you do FHA, click on it, it doesn't automatically attach.
I do not believe it does because I have yet to ever see it automatically attach. I believe it attaches the FVAC, but I don't know that I've ever seen the HID attached. Okay. In addition, if you go VA, you just need the FVAC. We've covered that before, but I'll show you that form just so you see it. And then also keep in mind here on this loan amount, the FHA or VA, it's deliver a list of lender required repairs. They did this box. It's kind of funky because the lines don't go down. The lines should go down, but they've messed up the residential purchase agreement. It's all right. So the line should go down. So this should read, if FHA or VA checked, deliver list of lender required repairs. And then here's the time frame. It defaults to 17 days after acceptance. There used to be a separate form for that, but now it's on the repair request. So there's a section for lender required repairs on that repair request. All right. So let's now hop down to the FVAC form. Like I said, we've covered that before. Oh, you look, it does. It attached the FVAC HID bundle when I checked that box. So it is attaching it now. So the FVAC form, that's that FHA VA amendatory clause, which states that it doesn't matter if you've removed your appraisal contingency in the offer because you're a VA or an FHA buyer. If the property does not appraise for the purchase price, you have the right to cancel the contract. Okay. So if this form is in play and it has not been addressed, then even if they remove the appraisal contingency, buyers can still cancel based on a low appraised value. You can't get away with putting less than the appraised value here because the lender is going to throw a fit. Okay. It's really hard to get around this. The best way to get around this is to attach an addendum to your offer. I'll tell you why I say an addendum here in a minute. Attach an addendum to your offer when you submit it if your buyers want to waive their rights, and put buyers waive their rights under the VA FHA amendatory clause on that addendum. The reason I say the addendum is that you most of the time can get away with not submitting that addendum to the lender, and then they won't cry and scream and pitch a fit. Okay, because lenders, they cry a lot. So that's the FHA VA amendatory clause. Again, we've covered that before, but you do have to put the purchase price in there. And again, if you waive your appraisal or you do an appraisal gap on the offer, if this is in play, it doesn't matter. It has to be at appraised value. Buyers can still decide to move forward. FYI, they can still decide to move forward if the appraisal comes in low, but they always have the right to cancel if they don't waive their rights under this VA FHA amendatory clause. And if the lender sees that they're waiving their rights under that, they're going to cry. Okay. So that's that one. We're going to skip that one. All right. So for your protection, get a home inspection required for FHA transactions. So remember now, if we click FHA, it's going to include this FVAC HID bundle. So include both forms. So, and it's a good idea, even if you don't have a VA or FHA loan, to include this form, just because it talks about the importance of the home inspection. That's something that we always recommend. So you must make a choice on getting a home inspection. It is not done automatically. You have the right to examine carefully your potential new home with a professional home inspector, but a home inspection is not required by law and will only occur if you ask for one and make the arrangements. You may schedule the inspection before or after signing your contract. You may be able to negotiate with the seller to make the contract contingent on the results of the inspection. For this reason, it is usually in your best interest to conduct your home inspection as soon as possible if you want one. In a home inspection, a professional home inspector takes an in-depth, unbiased look at your potential new home. 2, evaluate the physical condition, structure, construction, and mechanical systems. Identify items that need to be repaired. Estimate the remaining useful life on the major systems, equipment, structures, and finishes. The appraisal is not a home inspection and does not replace an inspection. The appraisal estimates the market value of a home to protect the lender. An appraisal does not examine or evaluate the condition of the home to protect the home buyer. An appraisal only makes sure that the home meets FHA and or your lender's minimum property standards. A home inspection provides much more detail. FHA and lenders may not guarantee the condition of your potential new home. If you find problems with your home after closing, neither FHA nor your lender may give or lend you money for repairs. Additionally, neither FHA nor your lender may buy the home back from you. Ask a qualified home inspector to inspect your potential new home and give you the information you need to make a wise decision. Your home inspector may test for radon, health, safety, and energy efficiency. EPA, HUD, and DOE recommend that houses be tested and inspected for radon, health, and safety, and energy efficiency, respectively. Specific tests are available to you. You may ask about tests with your home inspector in addition to the structural and mechanical systems inspection. For information, read radon, health and safety, see the HUD Healthy Homes program at HUD.gov. Energy efficiency, see the DOE Energy Star program at EnergyStar.gov, right? Just so you know, I believe your NHD report, when you go through the entirety of that report, does talk about the fact that if it is in an area of naturally occurring radon, most of the area in California does not have naturally occurring radon. Not only that, but we don't generally have basements or large crawl spaces under the house. If we have a crawl space, it's usually above grade. It's not dug into the earth. That's usually when you encounter problems with radon. Most other states, Idaho, Colorado, Nebraska, Pennsylvania, they have issues with radon. And a lot of that is because there are basements and it's dug into the ground. So just keep that in mind. We don't often encounter radon. And I don't even know how many people in Northern California do radon testing. So just a heads up on that. Selecting a trained professional home inspector. Seek referrals from friends, neighbors, other buyers, realtors, as well as local listings from licensed authorities and local advertisements. In addition, consult the American Society of Home Inspectors on the web at www.ashi.org or by telephone. Okay, and then it goes, I or we, circle 1. You're supposed to circle 1. I don't know that it matters there. Have read this document and understand that if we wish to get a home inspection, it is best to do so as soon as possible. The appraisal is not a home inspection. We will make a voluntary choice whether to get a home inspection. A home inspection will be done only if we ask for one and schedule it. Your lender may not perform a home inspection, and neither FHA nor your lender may guarantee the condition of the home. Health and safety tests can be included in the home inspection if we choose, and they sign it. You used to have to, the buyer had to select, yes, we're having a home inspection, or no, I choose not to have a home inspection. On this form, they no longer have to do that. They just sign it. Okay, so no decision has to happen here. Any questions on this HID form?
So they're not obligated to have a home inspection.
No, still not forced to have a home inspection.
Okay.
Just required to make a choice.
So if they're a cash buyer, we should include this.
Absolutely. I would include this on all of my purchase transactions. In fact, I would go into my RPA template and just go ahead and throw this document in here. So anytime they sign that offer, they're seeing about the home inspection. You could even have them sign it at time of when they sign that BRBC as well. So you could add it there versus with an offer. They only have to sign one, so you could reuse it with any of your offers, but that way they know and they're drawn their attention to the fact that, hey, get a home inspection. We can prep them in advance for that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
When are we going to do when are we doing our template class?
I do not know yet. It is recorded. I showed you how to do it a couple different times, so you can always find the recording, but we can always do it again.
But the new people, I'm thinking about the new people.
Yes, we usually try to do it once a quarter. All right. So that's your 4-year protection, get a home inspection. You can do it separately, but again, if you in the RPA, click the box for FHA VA loan, it will automatically add this FVAC HID bundle to your transaction. So go looking for that. The second form we're going to cover today is the buyer's inspection waiver. We did talk about this yesterday or last week, I don't remember which, about, hey, I send out this email at the beginning and say, hey, these are the recommended inspections. And then they should sign a buyer's inspection waiver for anything they're not having done. So remember, I generally recommend on any purchase, a home inspection, a pest inspection, a roof inspection, HVAC inspection, and a sewer lateral. Okay, those 5 inspections should be recommended on just about every property. The only exception would be if it doesn't have a sewer system or it doesn't have an HVAC system, then you might not have one of those. Okay, but anytime, even with like a septic system, usually you can tell if it's cleaned out, but you still may want to have that sewer lateral, especially if the tanks are a distance from the house, because that's a long ways for your poop to travel and you want to make sure there aren't roots and stuff in that line. So even then, even if you got a septic, you still may want a sewer lateral where they kind of scope and make sure it's clean underneath the house portion, because there's nothing worse than having to like jackhammer through foundation to fix a sewer line. Okay, so home, pest, roof, sewer lateral, and HVAC system. Okay, on that, you've got your buyer's inspection waiver or your BIW form. You put the full property address on the top. This form is intended for use between a buyer and a buyer's broker. It does not alter the legal or contractual relationship between a buyer and a seller. The importance of property investigation, unless otherwise specified in the purchase agreement used, the physical condition of the land and any improvements being purchased is not guaranteed by either seller or brokers. For this reason, you should conduct thorough inspections, investigations, tests, surveys, and other studies, investigations of the property personally with professionals of your own choosing who should provide written reports of their findings and recommendations. And you should not rely solely on reports provided by a seller or others. A general physical home inspection typically does not cover all aspects of the property nor items affecting the property that are not physically located on the property. If any professional recommends additional investigations, including a recommendation by a pest control operator to inspect inaccessible areas of the property, you should contact qualified experts to conduct such additional investigations. Claudia, to answer your question, leach lines are checked in the septic inspection. Absolutely. So if it has septic, you should recommend a septic inspection. They run water into your septic tank, lots of water, they flood it with the intention of watching how fast it seeps out or leaches out of that system to make sure those leach lines are functioning appropriately. Absolutely. So in a septic system, for those that don't know, you've got your house, you've got a line that goes into your septic system. The septic system usually has 2 chambers. Everything goes into the first chamber. The liquid seeps to the second chamber. Everything else remains in that first chamber, breaks down. There's usually happy, healthy bacteria and stuff in those that help break down all the solid waste. And then you've got leach lines that lead out of your septic system, and that takes and leaches the water out and into the earth and cleans it that way because it leaks in to the ground, and then it's automatically naturally filtered through the land. However, that's why there are restrictions of how close your septic system can be to your well location, because we don't want poop contamination in your well. Okay, so that's how your septic system works. Your septic system should be pumped every about 4 years or so. And often on a transaction with a septic system, the seller pays for your septic inspection, and they also pump the tank. So the seller pays for their poop because we clean out that tank for the new buyers, and then the buyers pay for the well inspection. Yeah, Claudia, I would say that should go hand in hand with a sewer lateral. Most of our septic companies don't inspect from the tank to the house, which is where that sewer lateral inspection would be concerned, making sure those lines are in good condition in the property leading to that septic tank. The septic inspection just looks at the septic tank through the leach lines. So yep, absolutely. So there you go. There's your little septic lesson for the day. All right. So importance of property investigation. Section 2 is buyer's rights and duties. You have an affirmative duty to exercise reasonable care to protect yourself, including discovery of the legal, practical, and technical implications of disclosed facts, and to investigate and verify information and facts that you may know that are within your diligent attention and observation. If the purchase agreement gives you the right to investigate the property, the best way to protect yourself is to exercise this right. However, you must do so in accordance with the terms of and time specified in that agreement. It is extremely important for you to read all written reports, disclosures provided by professionals, and to discuss the results of investigations with the professionals who conducted the investigations. Okay, that's section 2. Now, just so you know where it talks about timeframes, if we go back to that residential purchase agreement in that grid section, in case you're like, Amy, what did that mean? Here when we get to section L and we have our contingencies, right here. See how it has on L3, you've got investigation of property, right? That's your property investigation contingency. But right under that, most people don't understand. You've got this informational access to property. And you're like, what is that? That is the time the buyer has to access the property once under contract. Sellers cannot deny access. They may ask for a different day or a different time, but they can't actually deny access during this time frame. So oftentimes, I change this to match the escrow period, and there's a reason that I do that. And even if you've waived your contingency for the investigation, the physical investigation of the property, buyers still have the right to access the property during this time frame, right? Buyer's right to access the property for informational purposes is not a contingency and does not create cancellation rights, and applies even if contingencies are removed. So this is the access, the informational access to the property. I want to go measure for couches. I want to make sure our boat's going to fit, right? That's that informational access that you have. So it defaults to 17 to match the investigation. I usually bump it out to match the escrow period. So just a little heads up there. All right. Getting back to our buyer's inspection waiver. So that's section 1, the importance. Section 2, buyer's rights and duties. Section 3 is your waivers. A home inspection waiver. Broker recommends that buyer obtain a home inspection, even if seller or broker has provided buyer with a copy of the home inspection report obtained by the seller or a previous buyer. If you do not do so, you are acting against the advice of the brokers. If the buyer chooses not to have a home inspection, they're going to initial here. If they have one, they do not initial section 3A. Buyer has decided not to obtain a general home inspection at this time unless buyer makes a subsequent election in writing during buyer's investigation period. If any, buyer waives the right to obtain a general home inspection. Okay, so they only initial if they don't. B is wood destroying pest inspection waiver. Broker recommends that buyer obtain an inspection for wood destroying pests and organisms, whether paid for by buyer or seller. If you do not do so, you are acting against the advice of the brokers, right? So same idea there with wood destroying pests. Keep in mind too, this is really important. A wood destroying pest, or what we can consistently call a pest inspection, it only looks for wood destroying pests. It is not looking for bats, bats, rats, or mice. Okay, it's just looking for wood destroying beetles, dry rot, water damage, things like that that are going to damage the structure of the property. So just kind of keep that in mind. Most of our pest inspectors can also conduct a rodent inspection. However, there's a second fee associated with that, and you want to make sure to get that scheduled, because oftentimes our actual pest inspectors that do the wood destroying organisms report, which is technically what it is, not a pest inspection, it's a wood destroying organisms report, technically they're not licensed to actually do the rodent inspections. They bring out a secondary inspector that does that rodent inspection. Same company, just different person. Okay. Buyer has decided not to obtain an inspection for wood destroying pests and organisms at this time, unless buyer makes a subsequent election in writing during the buyer's investigation period. If any, buyer waives the right to obtain an inspection for wood destroying pests and organisms. So again, we only initial here if they've chosen not to get one. Okay. And then C is broker recommends the buyer obtain an inspection for the following items. So broker recommends an inspection for the HVAC, sewer lateral, and roof, right? So I'm going to write that in there. You can even set that up in your templates, so it automatically always populates on here, and then we may need to tweak it or add things that we did recommend. If you do not do so, you are acting against the advice of the brokers. Buyer has decided not to obtain the inspections noted above at this time unless a buyer makes subsequent election in writing, buyer's investigation period. If any, buyer waives the right to obtain such inspections. So again, I usually put everything here that I would recommend. If they've chosen not to have one of these, then they would initial here that they've chosen not to have an HVAC or they've chosen not to have a roof. I'm still going to put them all in there so that we know, or you could just put what they've decided not to have, right? Not that big a deal. If they decided to have a roof and an HVAC, but not the sewer lateral, we could just leave the sewer lateral there because we have the roof and the HVAC inspection. And we have the email showing that we recommended it. And then they actually have the inspection reports there. So just the ones that they don't do is really what you should put there. And then they would initial this line. Okay, so we only initial A, B, and C if they choose not to have any of those inspections. Any questions so far on 1 through 3C?
So would you send this out with your, when would you send this form out?
So this form on our transaction checklist is structured to go out. Let's look. I was working on completing the list for you this morning. Let's see, house identified, day 0. I think it's around like, I have it on like day 5. Prepare
Okay.
the BIE and BIW for signatures, send all disclosures to buyers for signatures. You really want this to go to them before the end of their inspection period in case they decide to have something done.
Okay.
You could make it, I mean, you want to send them that email where it talks about like, hey, here's the ones we recommend. What do you want to have? So somewhere between like day 3 and 5 is really where they should probably get this. But once they say, here are the reports or here are the inspections that we want, then you could send this form out to let them know.
Is this mandatory? Are we supposed to be sending this out?
This is not mandatory as far as the contract goes, as far as your residential purchase agreement. This is more of a make sure that you're protected form from any post-closing issues of, well, she said that she never told me I should have a home inspection, or she never told me I should have a sewer lateral inspection and now it's clogged. So it's really a protection form for us.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. If there were additional investigations recommended by other reports, then you've got section 4 down here. Buyer has received so you may have more than one of these in the inspection or in the form, or you may send it back out for a secondary in signature or initial in section 4, because section 4 is waivers of additional inspections recommended by other reports. They really should break this out and have 2 forms. So you're sending one out at the initial period, and then once you've got your inspections back and they've said, hey, you should really have an HVAC inspection, or hey, you should really have the rodent inspection, the rodent thing looked at, right? Then you could come back and do this, but it doesn't. It's included as part of this form. So your options are either to send out a second one, cross out the first section, the initial here, or sign for section 4, go back and revise it and have them initial section 4 on any of the revisions, or if it was the sellers had the inspections done and there were inspections recommended, further inspections, you could note it there. So we have a general home inspection report prepared by blank, dated. We have a wood destroying pest organisms report prepared by blank and dated. So you're going to put whoever did that report or other report. You're going to put in the type. So maybe this was the HVAC report prepared by, you put who and what date. This report recommends that buyer obtain additional investigations. Broker recommends that buyer obtain those additional investigations. If you do not do so, you are acting against the advice of the brokers. So, right, so we could have them complete section 3, sign the form, initial anything here where they're waiving their rights for those inspections. And then we could come back and have them fill out section 4 and have them initial here if they're not choosing to have any further inspections that were recommended. Buyer has decided not to obtain any additional inspections, investigations, or reports at this time, and unless the buyer makes a subsequent election in writing during the buyer's investigation period, if any, buyer waives the right to obtain such additional investigations, inspections, or reports. Okay, so that's what I would do. I would have them sign this. I fill out the top section 3, have them initial for anything they're choosing not to do. If they're choosing to do all the reports you recommended, then it's not a big deal. You don't even have to send this form out at the beginning. Only if they're choosing not to have one of those 5 or 6 or however many inspections that you recommended, would you put it on here and have them initial for it. And then once your inspections are done, if there was further inspection recommended and they're choosing not to, then you would probably want to come back, fill out section 4 and have them initial there. Buyer represents and agrees that the buyer has independently considered the above and all other investigation options, has read all written reports provided by professionals and discussed the results with the professional who conducted the investigation. Buyer further agrees that unless buyer makes subsequent election in writing during the buyer's investigation period, if any, buyer waives the right to conduct the investigation above. So there's your BIW form. Any more questions about the BIW form?
So no, but how much is a sewer lateral inspection?
It depends on the company. If you use like a company like All Points Home Inspection, they actually will add a sewer lateral inspection. I think it's about $150. Some companies charge, I would say it's going to run you somewhere between 100 and 250 for a sewer lateral inspection.
In Contra Costa County, they require this. That's one of the things that I've noticed they required on their their sales.
Yep. So that's would fall under, just so everybody knows, Contra Costa does. Some of those Bay Area counties have inspections that are required. For the most part, Solano County doesn't. When you start crossing into Yolo County, there are more required inspections as well. Not so much in winters, but when you talk about like Woodland, you've got the fire suppression system. If the house has one, has to be inspected. You've got Davis that has the pre-sale inspection that has to be completed. So you just want to make sure that you know the area in which the property is that you're making an offer, because when we start looking at the grid on the residential purchase agreement, all those inspections fall into the allocation of cost section, where it talks about right here on Q5, government required point of sale inspections and reports. So I always default that the seller pays for those government required point of sale inspections and reports. Okay, you can change it, but just know it all falls underneath there. If the government is requiring it in order to transfer, whether it's city or federal government or county government, it falls under this section right here.
Would you happen to have a cheat sheet of said counties and said requirements, since you mentioned it and it just flew so fluently off your
I do not, because I know kind of YOLO Solano, but when you start talking about Contra Costa, San Francisco, Marin, all those areas, I have no idea what's required. I do know that Contra Costa requires that sewer lateral because we've encountered it on lots of transactions. But I don't know beyond that. I don't do much business in the other counties to know what is required. Sorry. In Placer County, they require that the wood stove be stamped with the EPA certification. Otherwise, the seller has to actually remove it from the property if it's got a wood stove in it. So I do know that one because we encountered that one. So anyways, there you go. Any other questions on that BIW form, the buyer's inspection waiver, or the HID, the for your protection, get a home inspection? All right, fabulous. Now let's dive back in. We're going to pick up our buyer's contract to close. These forms actually came right into play with that because we talked about that buyer's inspection waiver yesterday when we were going through the checklist of things that we prepare with the buyer's inspection election, the buyer's inspection waiver. The 4-year protection, get a home inspection form, great form. Again, you almost maybe should have them sign that form at the time that they sign their BRBC, or absolutely anytime they sign an offer if they hadn't signed it previously. They only have to sign one, so as long as it's in your file, you're good. And it is required if it's a FHA loan, okay? All right, so we're gonna pick up down here. We made it to our day 15. So we talked about the appraisal contingency, what to look for, GENCY, that is not spelled appropriately. Anyways, I'll fix that later. So, right, we talked about the appraisal contingency, what to look for, that it needs to come in at value and with no conditions or no subject to. We want to make sure we hear that from the lender before removing that appraisal contingency. With all of these contingency timeframes too, this is important to note. They don't fall off. Oh, we talked about that. They don't fall off automatically, that you can let them drag out as long as possible. So if something takes longer than anticipated, it's okay if it goes over a day or two. It doesn't remove automatically. In some other states, those contingencies, once it hits that time frame, they automatically get removed. So you either have to ask for an extension or be okay with it, because once the day comes and goes, you're out of luck. If you've got a legit reason, so remember yesterday I talked about, hey, I will drag my feet on removing those contingencies as long as possible, just because I want to protect my buyers as long as possible and give them any out I can in the case that something random comes up. That being said, if you've got a legit reason to extend a time frame, please do so as early as possible. If our lender ordered the appraisal on day 3, we've got proof that they've ordered it. We're coming up, day 10's coming. We're supposed to remove it by day 14. That appraisal has yet to be conducted. We're going to ask for an extension of time. We're going to talk with that lender. Hey, lender, when is that appraisal due by? When do you expect to have it back in your hands? And then give you like another 48 hours for it to be reviewed by their underwriter or their quality control department, right? So we need to ask for an extension. You would do that on an ETA, or an extension of time addendum. And I recommend doing that as soon as possible. Don't wait until the contingency removal date if you know you're going to need an extension of something. It just comes across as shady. Okay, so try to do it as far in advance as possible, and then back it up with your reason. Like, hey, here's proof that we ordered it on day 3. We just had problems finding an appraiser because it's a unique property, or it's in a high fire hazard zone. So the appraiser had to have a specific rating associated with appraising that house. It is a thing, just so you know, if the house is in a high fire hazard severity zone, the appraiser has to have a different certification attached to their license to be able to appraise that property. We've run into this before. Or if the house is over $1 million, also separate appraiser has to do it. They have to be rated to be able to do that. So it gets funky when you start getting, especially if it's like a high priced house in a fire hazard zone, you're like down to 2 appraisers in all of Northern California. Okay, there's probably a handful more than that, but it's a limited number of people. So just kind of keep that in mind as those contingencies are coming up. If there's legit reason to ask, maybe you had the home inspection done. They ask, the lender verifies that, Claudia. The lender makes sure that it goes to the right appraiser. If you've got a legit reason for needing, you had a home inspection, they recommended further inspection. Now you've called the other inspector to come out and do further inspection, but they're going to be like right up about that contingency time frame, or they're not able to get out there inside of the contingency time frame. Ask for that extension to escrow. Never hesitate to ask for the extension if you've got a legit reason. Okay, it's going to come across better than just dragging your feet on that contingency removal. Okay, all right. Schedule repairs if necessary. Remember previously we talked about negotiating that repair request. If we negotiated repairs, now we want to make sure we schedule those repairs to take place. Is day 15. Day 17, request disclosures back from the listing agent. So remember back there on day 14, we sent disclosures back to the listing agent. And it's not just the seller disclosures we're sending back. We're also sending over other things that were signed by the buyer that may need seller signatures on them. So we want to make sure we get all of those back signed. Okay. Then we get into 5 days before the loan contingency time frame. We want to check in with the lender on where we're at with, with the loan and where we're at with the closing disclosure status. Okay, so remember that closing disclosure has to go out before we can sign documents. So we only, every time we check in with that lender, we don't just want an update on the loan itself. We want an update on if that CD has gone out, because that's going to hold us up more than anything. Okay, so 5 days before loan contingency, we want to check in and see how that loan's rolling along. 1 day before the loan contingency, we're going to confirm loan status with the lender. Okay, we're going to check in with them. Hey, I know we checked in a few days ago. You said you were wrapping things up. How's it going? Is it out of underwriting? Did the buyer get you all of the conditions? How are we looking? We need to remove our loan contingency. How are you feeling about that? Now, keep in mind that oftentimes a lender will not say, oh yeah, you're good to go, remove that loan contingency. They never want to say that because they don't want to be on the line for telling you that you can remove the loan contingency and then have something happen. So oftentimes we just have to have conversations with them and make sure that everybody feels comfortable with where we're at with the loan and that the conditions that are there can be met by the buyer. And it's always okay to ask for the lender to send you the list of remaining conditions. Okay, or it's also okay to say, hey, do you need help? Do I need to contact the buyer to help you get stuff turned in so that we can wrap this up? That's okay. It's okay to do that. They're part of your team. They should be working together with you, and you should know everything that needs to be done in order to make this close. If there are still outstanding conditions 1 day before the loan contingency, I absolutely ask for a copy of the remaining conditions so that I can see what's on there. And I'm going to ask the lender, do you think we're going to have any problems getting these conditions cleared? And they're like, oh no, they're super easy, right? No problem whatsoever. Then I know that we're probably okay to remove that loan contingency. On loan contingency day, you want to remove that loan contingency. Again, I'm probably going to send the form out to my buyers and say, hey, heads up, today's loan contingency removal deadline. So we need to remove our loan contingency. I've talked with the lender. He feels pretty confident. Everything is going smoothly. You've gotten all the conditions into them. So they're just doing their final review. So I'm going to send that contingency over for you for signatures so that we can remove that contingency. Are you okay with that? They're going to say yes. Buyers are going to sign that loan contingency form. And then I'm going to sit on it again until that seller listing agent really badgers me for it. Okay, once that seller or seller's agent starts badgering me for it, then I'll send it over. But otherwise, I'm just going to protect my buyers by sitting on that with it signed. They're going to think they removed it, but they didn't actually remove it yet. Okay. Once we remove that loan contingency, now we've removed the appraisal contingency, we removed the loan contingency, remove the inspection contingency. Once all of that's done, that property in the MLS should be moved to pending. So remember, when we put a property in the contract, it should go from active to contingent. If there's any sort of contingencies in that offer, once all the contingencies have been removed, then it should go from contingent to pending, and we need pending in our SkySlope file. So we want to upload that pending to our SkySlope file. We also want to make sure that we upload all the signed documents in the SkySlope. So here we are about 21 days into the contract. We should be able to upload kind of the remaining missing items in our SkySlope file. Anything else missing, we're going to request those documents from the listing agent. If there's anything we need from them, we're trying to clean it up so that we're ready to close. 7 days prior to close of escrow, we're going to confirm that commission demand, and we're going to send a copy of it to title. So remember, up here on day 5, we requested that commission demand. So now we're going to confirm that everything's correct, that everything's still good. We didn't renegotiate prices or anything. As long as it's still good, we're going to send a copy of that over to title. You also want to sign that commission demand, and you want to upload it into SkySlope. If any corrections need to be made, send an email out for those corrections before sending it over to title and signing it and putting it into SkySlope. Also, 7 days prior to the close of escrow, we're going to confirm with the lender on the CD issue date. So that's that closing disclosure. So the closing disclosure needs to go out 3 days before the buyers can sign, which is why I'm saying, hey, 7 days prior to the close of escrow, we're trying to make sure that that CD has been issued, because that's going to mean like 4 days out, we can start thinking about signing. or if there's a delay, we still have time to get it out before we have to delay the close of escrow. Okay, so we're going to confirm that lender CD issue date. Make sure it's been issued or find out what the plan is with that. Also, 7 days prior to close of escrow, once we know that CD's gone out, then we kind of know what our time frame is for signing. We're going to prepare for our signing appointment. And usually what that entails is I reach out to the buyers and I say, hey, we're getting closer to the close of escrow. It's about time. We're going to need to sign all of our final loan and house documents. You can either do that at the title company, or you can do that at your residence or someplace that you feel comfortable. Where would you like to have your signing appointment? Oftentimes, if you sign at the title company, it's a little less expensive because you don't have a mobile notary, but you can do it either place. Where would you like to sign? If they're like, oh, well, we can sign during business hours at the title company, or, well, we're really busy at work this week, so can we sign at home in the evening, right? Perfect, no problem. If you don't know their home address, get that, or if they have a special address that they want to sign, just confirm the address. And then I send that information along with their contact information over to the title company. Hey, I talked with my buyers. If possible, they would like to sign on Friday between 6 and 8 p.m. at their residence. Here's that address and here's their phone numbers. Please contact them directly to schedule that signing and let me know once it's been confirmed. Okay, so that's what preparing for signing looks like. Title company is going to schedule that buyer signing. Usually about 5 days prior to the close of escrow, we get that buyer signing scheduled. At that same time, if you're going to send a feedback form for your buyers to complete with their closing documents, you can send that over to title and say, hey, please include this with the closing package for the buyers to fill out during the signing of the documents. That way you kind of know what to expect when we get to the review portion, when we're asking for reviews, whether we should be asking for reviews or not, or we're still far enough in advance that maybe we can fix something. Was there something that they were unhappy with? We're also going to schedule about 5 days prior to the close of escrow, you're going to schedule your final walkthrough. Now, keep in mind that your contract, your residential purchase agreement, the default is 5 days prior to the close of escrow, not 4 days, not 3 days, not 2 days, not 1 day prior to the close of escrow. It's 5 days prior to the close of escrow is when you're supposed to complete that verification of property condition. I usually advise you and I teach you to put on that line 1 to 5 days. So if we go back over here to our residential purchase agreement, to our grid, we've got our verification, final verification of condition, defaults to 5 days. I usually instruct that you put 1 to 5 days prior to the close of escrow in that line, which gives you a time frame to be able to complete that final verification. Okay. Otherwise, you were supposed to do it at 5 days. If you missed it, technically you should waive it. Okay. You're out of contract. So that's why I usually put 1 to 5 days there. Here is, we're going to schedule that final walkthrough somewhere in that 1 to 5 day period. I like to do it as close to the close of escrow as possible, but with time still to be able to fix issues if they arise. So usually like the day before the close of escrow, we do that. Or oftentimes like buyers are signing on this day, they go from the signing, they've already taken time off work or have time available. So we usually like do the signing and then go do the final walkthrough. That also works as well. So schedule buyer signing, send buyer feedback form, schedule final walkthrough. We are also going to review the HUD form or the estimated settlement statement. So usually once the loan docs have been sent to title, once you've got that signing schedule, then the title company is going to send you a copy of the settlement statement, and you want to review it for accuracy. If the buyers were supposed to get a credit, that should be on there. If the sellers were paying for the home warranty, that shouldn't be on there. If the sellers were only paying for part of the home warranty, maybe they're paying for $500 of the home warranty and it ended up being $560, then the buyers are going to pay for that additional. Or if you're giving the buyers a credit for something, it should be on there. So we're just verifying that everything looks like it should. Okay. This is also a good time to make sure that here we're going to insert one row above. Talk with buyers about final funds to close. Okay. Once we review that HUD and we get that estimated closing statement, We want to talk with the buyers about making sure that they know they need to get the final funds over to the title company in order to close escrow. We don't want to wait until the day that you're supposed to close. If they're going to wire funds, they can do it in advance. If they're going to, they can't bring a check for those final funds. They really need to wire the funds over. They can bring a cashier's check in, so they need to make arrangements to do that. So we just want to have that conversation with them. And we also want to tell them that, hey, based on the estimated settlement statement I just got from the title company, it looks like you're supposed to come in with, $20,142.57. So that might be a case where you say, hey, if you could just go ahead and wire over $21,000 instead of $25.72 or whatever it was. That way, you make sure it's covered. And then what'll happen is at the close of escrow, the title company is going to balance out with what you've given them versus what was due, and they will cut you a check for the excess funds back. But we'd rather have too much in escrow than not enough. Does that make sense? And be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So we usually instruct them to put a little extra, round up a couple $100. Okay. So that would be the funds to close. I usually make sure that I'm available during the buyer signing. You don't have to attend the buyer signing. It's totally not necessary, but I make sure I'm available and make sure I know what's going on and watching my phone in case the buyers have a question they want to call. Okay. And I usually let my buyers know that, hey, I'm not going to be at signing. The mobile notary will meet you, or you'll meet at the title company at this time. And if you need anything, I'm going to make sure I'm available on my phone in case you have any further questions. I used to attend every closing, and we used to not have the closing disclosure. So oftentimes the closing table was the first time the buyers had seen that final settlement statement or the HUD form with the money due and what it was really costing them and their payment. That was the first time they were seeing all of that information, that final information. Now that we have the closing disclosures in place, and it can only vary so much from the initial disclosures. Like, buyers are pretty aware of what's going on through the transaction. So we're not having these big surprises at the closing table. It's actually kind of fabulous. So I don't worry about showing up at closing for every single buyer. You can totally do that. There's nothing wrong with that. You're totally welcome to be at their signing. I just can be doing other things while they're signing paperwork. It usually takes about an hour for them to sign a purchase package. There's a lot of documents involved in that if they have a loan. And we counted at one time, it was about 82 signatures. So you may want to prepare them in advance. Any questions so far? I know we're kind of breezing through this. Still make sure you're doing your weekly check-ins with your buyers. Still make sure that when we have a conversation with our buyers, they know when they're going to hear from us next through this process. Again, those first 5 days get really busy. Then you kind of have inspections, and then it gets way less busy. We're just kind of waiting for everything to finish up. Sometimes we're just sitting around twiddling our thumbs because the loan is ready, inspections are done, and we're just waiting for close of escrow because the sellers needed 40 days to close or 30 days to close. So we might have 10 or 15 days where absolutely nothing's happening. And we want to make sure that we're still in contact with our buyers so they don't feel like they're missing something or that we're forgetting them. Okay. Because you go from talking with them every day, showing properties, being with them, entering into contract, all this stuff happens. And then all of a sudden they don't hear from us for 3 days and they're like, oh my gosh, something's wrong. So they panic. So don't let them do that. You can even prepare them in advance. Hey, everything's kind of done. We're just waiting for the close of escrow. So unless something comes up, I'll check in with you Wednesday unless something happens before then, right? So just give them that heads up, hey, I'll check in with you on this day unless something else, we need something else. Okay. Now we're at the 1 day prior to the close of escrow. We're going to complete that final walkthrough and your verification of property condition. Okay. There's a form for that. It's called a VP verification of property condition form. On that form, you're just going to note that, hey, the property is in the same condition as the date of the accepted offer, and all repairs that were negotiated have been completed. So if that's the case, you don't have to put anything on that form. You can just sign it. I like to either put a line through the form so that our buyers aren't signing a blank form, or I put nothing else noted on the lines. Just so, again, I don't like my buyers signing blank forms. It feels scary to me. And as a buyer, that would feel scary. So I usually note that on there. If the seller's still in the house or the seller's belongings, I note it on that form, just so I have record of, hey, when we did the verification of property condition, the seller's belongings were still in the property. And just because you do the VP, if there's damage that happens after that, it does not alleviate the seller from taking care of any damage that's done to the property. It's just noting that, hey, at the time of this inspection, not at close of escrow, at the time of this inspection, everything is as it should be, is what you're verifying. If you've got a seller in possession after the close of escrow, still do your final verification of property condition, but then on that form, I note seller to remain in possession after the close of escrow. Final verification of property condition will be completed after seller vacates the property. So I note that on that VP. Okay, I just want everything to go as planned, and I don't waive the verification of property condition just because the seller's staying longer. Okay, 1 day prior to close of escrow, that's a good time to ask for referrals. Our buyers are excited. They're getting ready to get keys. They've signed their final documents. We're doing the final walkthrough. This is a good time. They're happy to ask for those referrals. Okay, we also want to review our file for completeness, make sure we have everything that we need in order to close out that file once we have the close of escrow so that we can get paid. Also, 1 day prior to close of escrow, this is a good time to schedule key delivery and closing photos, right? We want those closing photos so that we can send them to our buyers and they can share them on social media and tag us. We want to be able to share those photos on our social media and tag them. We want everybody to know that we helped these people get into a property. So we want to schedule that key delivery for the default on the contract. It's keys get delivered at time of recordation. So that usually happens in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon. This is also a good time to have a conversation with the listing agent of, hey, we're getting ready to close tomorrow. Are all the extra keys going to be at the property, or do I need to pick those, like keys and remotes? Are those going to be at the property, or do I need to pick those up someplace? Right? Where are we getting those keys so that we can make arrangements? Oftentimes they're in the property. It's usually one in the lockbox and then they leave the rest in the kitchen drawer or someplace. But we always want to verify that. Once we verify where those keys are going to be, then we schedule that time with the buyers to be able to do so. And I usually like to let them know that, hey, I'm going to bring a sold sign so that we can take some cute pictures in front of the house. That way, if they feel like they need to like do something with their hair or wear something different than their grubby sweatpants, they can do so. There's nothing worse than showing up for keys and they've been in the process of moving and they're like, do we have to do pictures right now? You don't want it to be awkward. At close of escrow, now we're going to request that FERPTA from title or the seller's affidavit of non-foreign status. Oftentimes that automatically gets sent over to us once they give us notice that we're on record. They balance out that closing sheet. They usually send us the FERPTA, the final settlement statement, and then they prepare the check package to go to the office. We're going to make that officially closed. That is also not spelled appropriately. This is why I should not do stuff late at night. Officially closed email or text message and phone call to the buyers to say, congratulations, you're officially homeowners. We're officially on record. I know we talked about meeting at 2 o'clock today so that I could get you keys to your new home and take some really cute pictures. Does that still work for you? Right. I'm also going to send them a text message. Oftentimes I send them a text message first because oftentimes there's more than one buyer. I can send a group text message to all the buyers at the same time saying, congrats, you're officially homeowners, with like confetti and stuff. So I usually send that text message out. And then I call my main point of contact to confirm the time that we're going to meet. In addition, you may want to send out like an officially closed emails to your buyer as well. So you can choose how you want to do that. You're going to send the move to close email to the listing agent. So if it's not closed yet, as soon as we hit recording, I usually will send an email to the listing agent. Our main reason for doing that is that Shannon and I are usually on all of our transactions together, and we want to make sure that they put both of our information when they do move it to close. So we send out an email just saying, hey, thank you so much for a successful transaction. Please remember to move the property to sold. I promise you that's going to be your number one thing that holds up your check, is getting a listing agent to move it to sold. When you do that, please make sure to put both Amy and Shannon on that. And here are their MLS ID numbers. So we try to make it as easy as possible. You can send over your MLS ID number. All right. Hey, when you move it to close, I just wanted to help you out by putting in my, here is my MLS ID number, so you don't have to search for me. So you could put that in there as well. And then I'm going to send you a thank you email out to the title, the lender, and the listing agent. right? Hey, thank you so much for a successful transaction. I really appreciate everybody's help and support on this transaction. Way to get it to closed, right? Something like that, just something fun. That's going to happen at close of escrow. We're going to request reviews from buyers. So we're going to send an email to buyers asking for them to complete reviews with links for Facebook, Yelp, Zillow, Realtor.com, etc. So whatever that is. Complete your SkySlope file. Now you should have everything in there ready to go. You can claim that closed Zillow or that closed sale on Zillow. So as a buyer's agent, if you go into Zillow, you can create a free Zillow account. And then you can log into the agent hub. If you click on your name, it'll say close sales. You can click on that and then you can claim the sale. You have to put in the date of the address, the date of the close of escrow, and the sales price. And then it'll show up under your past sales on Zillow. So an important step there because people are always looking everywhere at your information. You want to make sure to move it to closed in your CRM. So if you were keeping track of your transactions in your contact relationship manager, make sure you update that. You can send out or set up a sold touch campaign, right? What happens next? How do I interact with these people now that they've closed on a home? And then we want to make sure we set up anything that's going to be automated there. And then I'm giving you some examples of some of those things as well down here. You're going to send a thank you card to the listing agent, the title agent that you worked with, the lender, and any inspectors you worked with, right? Good business practices, creating those relationships. Thank you so much for completing the inspections on this and helping us get it to close. Thank you so much for your work on this, on the title side of things, right? Thank you so much for a successful transaction from the listing agent. We want to create happy, successful relationships. And then send a thank you card to your buyers so they get some mail in their new mailbox that isn't bills. Okay, any questions about close of escrow, getting to this point right here, to the point of closed? No, we're good. All right. Once you get to closed, you may want to send out your just sold postcards to the surrounding areas so that people know that, hey, we got our buyers in the contract. And instead of just saying, hey, just sold or whatever, you may want to pull something unique out of that transaction. And then maybe be specific with who you're sending it to, and think about that message. Like you may want to not send out a postcard that says sold for 20,000 less than asking, because now if you're sending it to homeowners, they may be like, oh, that's not a good deal, but right. So just kind of think about it like closed in 21 days, right? Buyer got below market interest rate, right? Something fun like that, that would entice someone to want to call you. It's not just like a just sold postcard. So do something fun and exciting on that just sold cards. I do recommend sending those out probably to about 100 homes. You can do that through Realty One through One Design. I think it's the other one, but through One Design ultimately. You're going to download and send the DIO or the Home Light Listing Management file to your buyers so they have a copy of all the documents in there. And then Anastasia, did you have a question?
Oh, I was going to say, what I've been doing for closing, when I hand them the keys, I hand them a brand new set of keys because I've gone to the house before and had the locksmith rekey everything, and then I hand them a brand new set of keys.
Yeah, so you can totally do that. And I don't know how much it's costing you for that locksmith, but keep in mind too that oftentimes you have a home warranty. It's covered under your home warranty to rekey the house for like 75 bucks or 80 bucks. So if it's costing you more than that, it may be more beneficial to give them the number of the home warranty company and a like Visa gift card for the cost of their co-payment on that, or their whatever that is. I guess it's a co-payment. But yeah, you could have it rekeyed. Well, part of the reason I don't have it rekeyed is sometimes buyers like to change out the knobs and stuff, or they want one of the digital ones. So, but I think that's a great idea. So either bringing it to their attention that they should get it rekeyed and paying for that copay to do that, or giving them new keys. I used to always attach my keychain. So I got keychains made on Etsy with our logo on it. And then you can put that on the keys when you hand it to them. So that way they're reminded of who got them those keys. But yeah, great idea.
Smart. You're so smart.
All right. You're going to archive once you download and send that DIO file, that Home Light Listing Management file to your buyers. Then you can archive that DIO file, that Homelight Listing Management file. You can send it into archive. Don't worry, if you ever need to pull it out of archive, you can. So if you need access to it again, you can absolutely pull that out and give them access again. In my zip forms, you can move it into closed as well, which takes it out of your active transactions. So it keeps your zip forms nice and clean. You want to make sure you update their address in your contact relationship manager in your CRM. So make sure they update their new address. You want to make sure to post on social media and tag your buyers unless they don't want to be tagged, but still post it on your social media. And again, make a story out of it, right? Create something that's going to create interest and be like, oh my gosh, Adriana's amazing and I want her to be my agent because look what she did for these buyers, right? So tell the story. Send a home warranty. So 7 days after close of escrow. So, right, we close escrow, they get keys, we take pictures. I usually send them copies of those pictures, post it on social media. Then we're going to send 7 days, a week later, I'm going to send them the home warranty information. So I'm going to touch base with them and say, hey, how's everything going? Just to let you know, I'm going to email you over that home warranty information again in case you need it for anything. And remember, your home warranty is going to cover all your major systems and components. This might even be a good time to like stop by their house, drop off a copy of the home warranty information with the pamphlet for the home warranty that talks about everything that it covers. Great reason to swing by the house and leave that for them. Okay. 10 days post-close of escrow, maybe follow up on those reviews if they haven't left any. Give them another opportunity to leave additional reviews if they have left some. Give them some other platforms. 14 days post-close of escrow, right? I don't want to forget about my buyers. I don't want to orphan buyers. So 14 days, 2 weeks after close of escrow, I'm just going to call, touch base, see how everything's going, right? How is it going? Are you getting moved in? Love to swing by. I know moving can be a little hectic. Are you getting everything done, right? Just touch base with them. About 30 days post-close of escrow, that's when I'm going to deliver a closing gift if they're getting one. Okay, why 30 days? Because they got keys on the close of escrow. They're in the process of moving. Things are hectic, and oftentimes gifts get lost during that time period. Not physically lost, but just mentally, they're so overwhelmed they forget about them. Forget where they came from. They're also getting other things from other people, but like a month out, that's a good time. It gives you a reason to swing by, see them in person again, ask them for more referrals, right? Follow up on those reviews and hand them something cool and exciting for a closing gift. Remember to check with your tax consultant on what you can write off as a closing gift. And then I'm going to return them to like a 36 plus interaction campaign after delivering that closing gift. Right. So they're going to get kind of like a 4x4 once a week after the close of escrow until about 30 days out, about a month out. They're going to hear from me about once a week. After that, we're going to roll them back into that 36 plus touch interaction campaign. So it's going to be, sometime around January 1st through the 5th, I'm going to send everybody who closed that previous year a copy of their closing statement. That way, when they get ready to do their taxes, it makes it really easy because they don't have to dig through their files or their email to find it. I've just sent them one. You can send it in the mail. It's probably better, but you can also send it via email. You can do both. Annually, maybe around their home anniversary, or maybe pick a month where you do this with all your clients. Send them a copy of their CMA report or a market analysis of their property in a more detailed format. And you can either drop that off on their door, mail it to them, email to them. I recommend either dropping it off or shooting it over in the mail. And then 1 month post-close of escrow, interact with them on social media, 2 months text message, 3 months call. We're going to repeat that for the course of the year, right? With social media, text, and call through the 12-month period so that you're interacting with them once a month every year. Deliver a pop-by, maybe like 6 months post-closing gift, right? Something fun, little, I did wrapping paper, I've done pumpkins, I've done honey sticks, like just something fun to just check in with them and just remind them that, hey, I'm still here from you. Even though you bought a house and I'm sure you're not ready to sell, I'm still here for you in case you need anything. Another good touch during that first year, especially, maybe making sure that they have your vendor list. Right? What services are they going to need as a new homeowner? And here's a list of recommended, or especially if they're new to the area, maybe put together like a welcome to Vacaville or a welcome to Fairfield packet that talks about the best restaurants, places to go shopping, maybe little hole in the wall places to go hiking, the lake, whatever it is, like that introduces them to the area. That could be a good interaction as well. Deliver 2 cards per year, a minimum of 2 cards per year. It may be like their home anniversary card when you hit that 12-month mark of being in their new home. And then maybe like a birthday card, maybe a happy Labor Day card, whatever it might be. Figure that out how you want to run your business and then deliver those. Also include a monthly email newsletter. And I would put them on a monthly, I can't spell today, in TH neighborhood update, right? So I would do this maybe through Real Scout, allows you to pinpoint their neighborhood and send out a monthly email to them that just keeps them up to date of what's going on in their neighborhood. It shows them what properties are available, are on the market, what have sold, what's pending. So it just keeps them update. So you probably want to do that as well. And then you just want to continue that forever. Our goal is 36 to convert. We're going to convert them back into clients. Now, somebody who closed on a property, we may want to be sending them emails about talking about investing in more properties, right? Becoming an investment owner, investment property owner, short-term, long-term. Right? How would you pull them back in as clients? We may want to talk about moving up, about downsizing. So when we talk about this monthly email newsletter, we may want to think outside the box. Somebody who owns a home, what would they want to know? Somebody who's getting ready to buy a home, what would they want to know? Right? So how do we help our buyers be successful after they've purchased a home is really what we're trying to look for. Adriana, I'm going to throw it in the chat box, the link for this list, so that you can have access to it and save it to your Google Drive. So that link's in there. Any other questions, thoughts, ahas? I also put a second link in there, although it didn't copy the whole thing, but that's the attendance sheet. So log your attendance. So both you've got there we go. Abby put it in there. I tried to, but I just copied the same link twice. Thank you, Abby. So anyways, you can log your attendance in there. Any questions, thoughts, or ahas before we wrap up for today? All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining me. I hope this was informational. I hope you learned some stuff. We went through the for your protection, get a home inspection, the HID form. We talked about the buyer's inspection waiver, the BIW form. Also showed you where it was out in the contract that it's required as part of an FHA deal, and then finished up our buyer's contract to close. So hopefully you found that helpful. This kind of concludes our buyer's month. As we dive into October, we're going to start talking about setting goals and setting yourself up for success in 2024. Now is the time to start planning and start implementing that plan so that you can start executing it by the beginning of November. We also have an amazing training coming up. I'll get you the details for it. It's sponsored by Cyberbacker, but it's coming up on October 11th. We have a couple people teaching a business planning clinic specifically designed to help set yourself up for next year. So I highly recommend $20 to a chock full of information. So I'll get you the details. You'll see it in the foxhole, as well as you'll see it pop up on Slack as well with a registration link for that one. And I will see you all next Tuesday.
Thank you.